In March 2018, we opened our doors to the public with a vision not just to create challenging professional theatre, but to use this as a platform to inspire and bring communities together. Theatre and culture build identity. With theatre and culture in our local life, the community landscape is more vibrant. Local life is enriched. We believe that the benefits of theatre should be available for everyone. Our Theatre for All programme has removed financial barriers, giving disadvantaged people access to the theatre free of charge.
So we were told that we'd come here and have a Christmas meal and then go and watch A Christmas Carol.
Our aim is to make live professional theatre available to everyone and use that experience for positive change. Theatre can be transformational in young lives. Our academy is now in its 4th year, and we continue to build on our vision of bringing the best performing arts tuition to the heart of the Cotswolds. We work hard to make our academy as inclusive and as accessible as possible. Discounts apply for parents with more than one child. Our bursaries help support talented children from less affluent backgrounds. The Academy creates a fun and challenging environment where children can build friendships and develop key skills not just for theatre, but for life. We are also able to provide real opportunities for students who wish to pursue careers in the arts.
My name is Harry Apps. I am currently playing Marius in Les Miserables in the West End.
Barn outreach and learning programmes engage with thousands of people. Our free workshops support the drama curriculum in local schools. Singing and musical theatre workshops in community groups and care homes have helped address issues of isolation. Our Song for Cirencester project in aid of mental health charities brought our community together in an unprecedented way. We've collaborated with many charities in the region, including the Churn Project, to support individuals dealing with the barriers to finding work.
Since working with you, my life's changed. It's given me some purpose, given me an interest, some confidence I was lacking prior to all this.
The Barn Theatre played a pivotal role in the town's 2018 World War I centenary celebrations. Who could forget our record-breaking Human Poppy? Our live streaming work on the annual Advent Festival helped thousands engage and take part in Cirencester's Christmas festivities. In these times of uncertainty, we strive to keep the community together. The theatre may be temporarily closed, but our commitment to you goes on. Even now, our amazing costume department are helping the NHS by making scrubs for frontline workers. We've used our technology to build a free live streaming service that provides much needed community news and entertainment for all the family, broadcasting every day to keep us all connected. We are not just a theatre. We are the Barn.
Another week in lockdown. This is Cotswold District Council Live. Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of CDC Live. Live from the Barn Theatre here in Cirencester. I want to start the show by saying a massive thank you to everybody who continues to do everything that they can to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic. In particular, our NHS staff, our key workers, our council staff, and all the volunteers up and down the Cotswolds who have done so much to ensure that nobody goes without. We've got a packed show today. We're joined by Councillor Rachel Coxcoon, who's our Cabinet Member for Climate Change. We are joined by Councillors Jenny Ford, Cabinet Member for Health and Wellbeing and a regular guest on the show, and by Councillor Tony Dale, who is our Cabinet Member for Economy and Skills. We're also going to be joined by Jared Bolton of Not Just Code. He's a Cirencester business person and he is a member of the Cotswold Taste initiative. We're also going to have updates today on parking charges, on the Waterloo car park in Cirencester, climate change. We've got a packed show, so do join us. And as always, make sure you get your questions in and we will do our best to answer those towards the end of the show. Ask us anything. We're going to talk about the climate emergency now. I'm joined now by Councillor Rachel Coxcoon, who is our Cabinet Member for Climate Change and Forward Planning. Rachel, welcome. This is your first time on Cotswold District Council Live. How does it feel?
Slightly terrifying.
It's all fine. We're all very friendly here. Rachel, we're making a big deal of the climate emergency. We declared a climate emergency just over a year ago, and we're putting a number of steps in place. Do you want to just talk through, well, the climate emergency first of all? You know, what does it mean? What does it mean to somebody's life? You know, living in Cirencester or Moreton in Marsh or wherever, and what are the council doing?
Okay, well, the climate emergency, I mean, 2019 was a year where you almost couldn't turn on the news without hearing the phrase the climate emergency, and obviously we've had another a pandemic emergency come upon us, so it might have dropped out of people's consciousness as a result, but it probably shouldn't have. The climate emergency is really the biggest threat facing humanity, not just Cirencester or Moreton in Marsh. We are looking at having to make some incredibly radical, far-reaching and unprecedented changes in the next decade to prevent global heating exceeding 1.5 degrees C. Once we get beyond that point, life in some parts of the globe starts to become very difficult, including the UK. Will be subject to more extreme weather, which we saw earlier this year with floods and which the Cotswolds has suffered from before. We'll have more rainfall in the winter, milder winters, so less frost, which will cause a lot more pest migration and damage to our biodiversity and our beautiful countryside, and a far greater risk of us suffering overheating and heat waves in the summer. And heat waves in particular are something that will affect the older population more than younger people. So we have a looming public health crisis, a looming financial impact on farming and the agricultural community, and largely a looming global problem with huge numbers of people migrating, looking for places that are habitable to live over the next sort of 40 to 50 years. So it's very much upon us. It's a problem that we've been pushing and pushing away for many decades and hoping that technical fixes would occur that we could use to solve our problem. But ultimately, the time is now and the changes need to happen now. So,
Cotswold District Council then, obviously I became the leader last May, back in, it wasn't last May now, it's been over a year, hasn't it? May 2019, I popped you into the cabinet, you know, new councillor, quite a daunting task. What are your priorities then on the climate emergency? What are the main things we want to do at Cotswold to help do our part to tackle some of the issues you just outlined?
Well, as a council, we actually own relatively little. I mean, there's a lot of local authorities that, particularly county level, they own farms, they own a lot of land, and we own very few buildings. So there's a limited amount that we can do in what you might call our own estate. We have a handful of buildings, we can make them energy efficient, we can do what we can to promote EV charging and some of those changes. But I think our more important role as a district is the role we play in placemaking. We are the planning authority, and through planning we could have done more radical things with the local plan that we had to really drive much more sustainable development, and I know that that's what people wanted to see. I heard so much about that when I was canvassing. So we want to use our planning tools, and I guess we'll come on to that later talking about the local plan. But we also want to support and engage the wider community, because this isn't something that any local authority, even a really big, rich, well-resourced city council, cannot do this on their own. They need to work with the residents, they need to support residents. So we want to put in place programmes of support for retrofitting buildings. How do we make the houses we live in more energy efficient and more resilient to overheating and things like that in the future? How do we support trade to grow? How do we bring, you know, small builders and people like that together to learn these these new skills to really improve our building stock? What do we do to understand what's the renewable energy potential in the district? Wouldn't it be brilliant if we had community-owned solar farms, a community-owned wind turbine, community-owned hydro if any of our rivers are suitable? So we're just about to commission a study to understand all of the technical potential across the district so that we can then work with the parishes on what they want to develop energy strategies, I suppose you might call it, at that very local level.
So some viewers might be aware that towards the tail end of last year, we went through the appointment process for a climate manager. I think the job title's changed slightly, hasn't it? What is the job title now?
Head of Climate Action.
Fantastic, nice and proactive. So that's Chris Crickle-Fallon, very high level. We're very lucky to have found Chris and for him to have applied. What's sort of Chris been working on then? Obviously, you two have got a close working relationship. What are his sort of priorities? What's he working on at the minute?
So he's one of those people who quite unfortunately came into a new job right at the beginning of the coronavirus epidemic. So he's been working from home, as have all the staff. So it took him a little bit longer than we might have expected to get his feet under the table, as it were. But he's been really looking at engaging with the procurement team on how we buy energy so that we can set a really good example on buying genuinely green energy. He's been working on, his background is actually in renewable energy and community energy, so has a lot of experience in helping people set up community-owned solar farms and things like that, so it's helping to build our strategy on that sort of work, working with our commissioning manager on what we do about rolling out electric vehicle charging, and he's also been engaging with the planning team about what we do now on the local plan. And I think the reason we recruited in at that senior level is a reflection of the fact that the climate emergency touches every aspect of everybody's life. So we need someone who can really take that helicopter view and then say, you know, now this is a programme of work on what we'll do about transport and local transport and moving people into cycling and walking. This is what we'll do about retrofitting our buildings. This is what we'll do about generating energy in a different way, because these are all quite different disciplines and you need someone quite senior and experienced to develop a strategy at that level. And what I have seen from a lot of other councils is they get someone in quite junior and they get quite fixated on, you know, sorting out the council's own energy bills, and that's not at this stage what we need to be doing. We need to be doing quite high-level, strategic, ambitious work.
And that's the point. Is that, you know, there might be some residents out there who are thinking, oh, well, it all sounds very expensive. You know, the Cotswolds is such a tiny part of this. You know, we need China and America and all these big powers to act. That's where you're going to get the real change. What would you say to people like that?
Yeah, there is the what ifness or what about, you know, what about China, what about the USA? You know, to some degree I always liken that to, oh well, there's been a riot and those people are looting, so I may as well join in. You know, you know what's right and you know what you need to do. But also, particularly around the resilience element of it, if we can't be convinced that some of the biggest players in the world will really get on board, and my view is that they will, and that China actually in strange ways already are, far more than the USA, but we need to be even more sure that we are protecting ourselves, that we are making ourselves resilient to what will happen. If temperature rises go above this 1.5 degrees, which is the best we can really hope for at the moment, which is not a great outcome. If things go above that and things become more difficult, then us not having planned to make our society more resilient will leave us worse off in the long run.
Okay, before we sort of talk about the planning policies that we will need to put in place, I just want to talk a bit wider about climate agenda, because the government have quite stretching targets. Indeed, in the Conservative Party's manifesto, these were stretching targets that were actually quite ambitious and impressive. So government will have some sort of expectations. Do you want to just sort of talk about what you think they are or what they are as they emerge and how they apply to us in the Cotswolds?
Yeah, so most people probably don't read climate change legislation, and I wouldn't blame them, but we have something called the Climate Change Act, which is actually, you know, it was groundbreaking, and Britain can be really proud of itself. We were the first country in the world to set ourselves a binding target for reducing our carbon emissions. So that's been going quite a few years now, and we have what are called 5-year carbon budgets. But our original target under the Climate Change Act was to get to an 80% reduction in carbon emissions by 2030, and what Theresa May's one of her last acts in government was to really stretch that, as you say, to make it very ambitious, and was to basically say not 80% by 2050, but 100% by 2050. So this is, and some people even now say that's not ambitious enough. If you look at what the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change say that we need to do, that's really kind of a backstop target. If we don't get there, we really are stuffed. So doing something quicker, doing something faster is always going to be better. But I am really, really impressed that the government have committed to that. And our own declaration is in line with that. So what we want to be able to do is support government upwards. And what would be ideal is if every parish and town had a really good look at what they can do and made their own declaration and supported us from the bottom, and we could have this really good sort of cross-government level working together to support each other. Because when we made the declaration, we said, this is not a party political issue. This is an existential threat to everybody's way of life. This is not about whether we agree with what Theresa May said or what I said as a Liberal Democrat. This is about everybody's future. And so I would hope that we can get to the position where we really are all working together on it.
Sure. And I think, you know, we've seen some encouraging signs, because I think all the councils now in Gloucestershire have declared climate emergency. That's Conservative, Labour, Lib Dem, all shades, independents. So that's good in that respect. And it would kind of indicate that, you know, there's some consensus, but it's the key thing, isn't it? We need to drive this agenda. We need to really drive it. So in terms of driving it then, one of the ways we can do that is by adapting our planning policies. So the District Council have recently, we recently voted to have a partial review of our local plan. So part of that will be focusing on what we've just been discussing. So Rachel, just talk us through a bit about that process and what the sort of aims are.
So the local plan is one of those documents that people are, again, not terribly aware of. Most people get involved with planning when a planning application comes in and they want to object or support that application. But they're perhaps less aware that those applications are all decided within a policy framework that's already set. So you're not often being asked, shall we have houses here? That may already be in the local plan. You're being asked, what kind of houses, how many, how tall, that kind of thing. And planning in really, really good councils that have taken climate change seriously for a long time, planning policy has been used to drive developers to deliver higher quality housing, to deliver far more renewable energy, and to deliver other kind of associated infrastructure around cycling and walking and all these other things that can help us make a zero carbon society. And our local plan isn't currently very strong on these things at all, although we've always had a very good reputation for the work we do on green infrastructure. And we have great officers on our biodiversity and that sort of work. So one of the things we really want to do is look at how we can use the local plan to really deliver on places that are designed for people to walk and cycle to, rather than everybody having to get in a car to do everything in life. But also, how far can we push developers on delivering zero carbon homes, and how can we show that that's cost effective both for the developer and ultimately for the people that live in them? Because one of the other sort of strange side effects of the changes we need to make around climate change are that there will be more price volatility in the energy market, and we don't want to end up with increased fuel poverty problems because the price of electricity fluctuates as we go through this transition. So the better our homes are, the more energy efficient they are, the easier they are to keep warm and to keep cool, the less it will cost the residents in the long run. So that's really crucial. How we work with the county on transport planning is really crucial. And what we do about bringing in adaptation measures. So some climate change is now unavoidable. It will get warmer. We will have more heat waves, even if we stopped emitting tomorrow. So really, really using green infrastructure and shading and really thinking about having a different kind of architecture that is fit for the future is going to be a big and important part of what we need to do with our local plan.
And how can residents sort of get involved in that process? Because I think we'd all recognise that when councils, and probably particularly Cotswold in the past, have had a consultation, it's sort of been a slightly low-profile flyer in the local paper, and that we're sort of surprised when nobody turns up and engages. So how are we looking at engagement and how we can get people's input into that?
That's actually one of the things that Chris Crickle-Fallon, our Head of Climate Action, is looking into now. So you're right, we've tended in the past to do something called Decide, Announce, Defend, a consultation, which is here's what we're going to do, what do you think of it? Well, we're going to do it anyway, which is classic local government. So what we're going to do now, on top of the standard consultations that we'll have to do with the local plan, which have these boring names like your Regulation 19 consultation, we're going to invest in online platforms that will allow allow people to engage with us over a much longer period and to be much more interactive. So if you can imagine map-based, where you go on and you click something, you go, this junction here, if only I could cross that on my bicycle and it wasn't dangerous, then I would be able to do this whole journey without a car. Or, you know, this area here is where I think solar farms would be suitable, the kind of thing where we can start to have a more conversational approach to understanding what people want. But also, you know, I've been receiving emails anyway for several weeks now about people saying, I've always wished there was a cycle route from here to here and A to B. I'm really happy to receive those emails. If people have got ideas about how the district can be made more sustainable, then email me, because these are all the sorts of things we can feed in and talk to consultants and talk to our own planning team about and see if they're feasible, because often it's that local knowledge that is really, really crucial that we wouldn't necessarily know about.
So on that then, sustainable transport is a big issue, isn't it? And it's going to require, will require us to work with the county council in order to achieve that. I think, you know, particularly in Cirencester, last night we voted to delay the Waterloo car park project and look at actually what other options there might be for that site. And one of those, I think one of the things the Waterloo car park was turning into was a sort of sustainable transport hub. And that will obviously feed into the master planning for Cirencester. So, you know, people will go, well, it's all very well taking car parking spaces away, but, you know, there's no buses. How am I supposed to get into town? How am I, you know, what would you say to them?
That's a really difficult one. I mean, there's some really interesting data, for example, roughly nationally, and it's definitely also true in Cirencester, about 40% of car journeys are under 2 miles. So one of the crucial things we have to do is be able to find those ways of helping people make their most local journeys by bike, on foot, or by all these other modes that are coming forward. You know, I'm sometimes frightened to admit this in the field that I work in, but I absolutely hate cycling. I really, really don't like it. And some years ago I bought an electric bike and it completely transformed my relationship with cycling. I don't like turning up all hot and bothered. I like to be able to carry my children on the back. And all of these things are now realities. How can we put in place schemes that will help towns like Cirencester and Moreton in Marsh and Tetbury and our bigger settlements have bike sharing facilities, car clubs, co-cars. Lots of people have second cars because they need a second car every now and again. Wouldn't it be great if we had cars that we could share among us? And this happens already in a lot of big cities, and we could certainly learn from those. We are somewhat scuppered being a district in a two-tier arrangement, because most people will know the county council is responsible for transport planning, but that's at the really strategic level, so that they are really looking at the big picture transport and the from town to town and city to city. Our role as a district, and again I really want to work with the parishes and towns on this, is what are those little loops, you know, where is it that people are coming from the edge of a town to the middle, all in their cars, one by one, and how can we intervene in that and help build schemes that we can then apply for funding for, or work with the county council on to improve that. So, but a lot of it has to be about personal responsibility. It is absolutely the case, and it is absolutely my view, that the private car to some degree has destroyed the public realm. We have allowed the private car to completely take over our roads and our beautiful town centres, and it's one of those tragedy of the commons situations where everybody feels that their own right to hop in their car and park outside the pharmacy and drive 300 yards to park outside the butcher is kind of an inalienable right, and everybody else's rights are crushed by that. And at some point we need to step back and say, no, there is a better way. There's a way to make our towns more appealing, nicer places to be, more vibrant, healthier, with cleaner air and more opportunities for us to move about and be active. And yes, some people will always need their car, and yes, some people will always have mobility problems, but by reducing all of those incredibly short journeys that don't really need to be done in a car, we'll be able to make more space for those people that really have to use cars forever.
So one of the things you'll be noticing over the next few weeks in some of the settlements is the Cotswolds is a few changes to road layouts, really with the aim of making it easier for pedestrians and cyclists in particular to get around. Rachel, you've been leading on this. Do you want to just sort of explain what people can expect and how they can have their say and their input as we move forward?
Yeah, so as people are aware, we've been in lockdown since about March, and we're just emerging from it now. And essentially, back in May, it became clear in a lot of towns that as lockdown started to ease, we were going to be left in a position where our pavements are very narrow, and in some cases our shops and our cafes and so on are very small, that would make it hard for people to get back out there and start engaging with and using their local businesses while still maintaining social distancing. This was clear in towns across the country, and there was a great deal of debate about it. So in early May, the Department for Transport issued some really directive guidance saying that they expect local authorities to reprioritise road space away from cars and to cyclists and pedestrians, which is great because that very much aligned with the conversations we were already having within the Cotswolds and I know across other parts of Gloucestershire. The guidance from the Department for Transport was very directive and says, you know, we want you to get on and do this very quickly. Government then followed that up a couple of weeks ago in late June with more guidance on pavement licensing. So the idea being that businesses like cafes and shops and so on will now find it much easier to be able to put their chairs and tables out onto pavements. And all of this is designed to clear away cars in order to allow people who spend money to go into shops and cafes and so on to get on with things. So what we're going to have to do is work closely with the county council, who are the roads, the highways authority, because quite a lot of that sort of work does need a traffic regulation order because it's road closure. So we went out, the planning team and myself went out to all of the ward members across the Cotswolds' biggest settlements a couple of months ago now and asked them for their views on where pavements could be widened to help businesses reopen safely and what that would do to traffic. We then took those proposals with a highways consultant who wrote them up for us to all the town and parish councils. So we've begun that consultation and they've commented on them, and those plans have now been adjusted. And they're now going to Gloucestershire County Council, who are going to look at them, make a few tweaks of their own, I imagine, and then start to implement them. So we're going to use something, most likely where it needs a TRO, we're going to be using something called an experimental TRO. And people should be aware that this doesn't mean that they're not going to get their say. People are normally used to, if there's going to be a road change, they get 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks consultation up front. But what Department for Transport are asking us to do is do this really quickly, do it now. So we're going to be using most likely experimental TROs, which allow for the change to be made and then the consultation to be an ongoing process thereafter, which is really good because as the COVID lockdown eases, and will probably wax and wane as we get these local spikes like we've seen in Leicester, we'll want to be able to make ongoing changes to how the roads are being adapted so that we can widen and allow more cyclists, less pedestrian, more pedestrians, less cyclists and things like that. So there will be an ongoing process of pedestrianisation and cycle provision. We will be taking away parking in some of our towns. Gloucestershire will be marking that up where it's appropriate. Some streets will be made one way, and the whole idea is to just sort of pedestrianise or semi-pedestrianise our main shopping areas. And I know that some business owners are often very concerned that if you pedestrianise an area, it will stop people driving in. We're very alive to that concern. There is a huge amount of data from pedestrianisation projects across the UK and the world that shows that when done well, that's definitely not the outcome and you can actually increase footfall. But again, we really want business owners to let us know when the changes start, this is really affecting me in this way or that's affecting me in that way. And, and give it time to bed in because people's behaviours are quite different at the moment. People's willingness to go to the shop is a bit reduced in some cases where they're nervous about their own health. So these changes Gloucestershire will work with us to start help putting these changes in place over the next month or so. And again, as I said earlier about consultation, it's just about ongoing dialogue while these emergency TROs are in place. And it feeds into the climate change agenda as well, because if we can think about how we get these short journeys onto foot and onto bikes, we can start to think about how we make these changes for the long term.
Fantastic. Well, Rachel, thanks so much for joining us. And I think the message to residents is, we want to hear from you. As Rachel said, get in touch with Rachel. I'm going to pop her email up on the screen, rachel.coxcoon@cotswold.gov.uk. Email her, she'll be more than happy to hear from you. And as we move forward and we have those consultation and those engagement events, make sure you have your say. I think the key point is, all local authorities have to set local plans, and if you come to one of those events and think, well, I want to stop everything, I'm happy the way everything is, well, that's not what is required of us from government, and I don't think that's where we'd ever want to be. We want to make sure that we're enhancing and upgrading our local area, and local plans are a facilitator of development and and all the positive things that can be associated with that. But in order to get those things, we've got to get it right, and that means having your input. So please get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you on that. Rachel, thank you very much.
Hello, my name's Mike Evermy. I'm the Deputy Leader of the Council and the Cabinet Member for Finance. I wanted to give you an update on the situation with regards to car parking in the Cotswolds. Last night at our Cabinet meeting, we agreed to increase the charges in our car parks for the first time in 10 years. We had agreed in the budget back in February that we needed to generate more income from our car parks alongside other things. We had £1 million that we had to find in our budget for this year, and the car park increases that we've agreed last night will generate in a full year £400,000 of that. We haven't changed the car parking prices in the district for 10 years, and so before we set the charges we had a look at what other towns around were charging. Particularly we looked at Cheltenham and we looked at Swindon and we looked at a number of other places, Gloucester and other towns, and made sure that the new charges that will come in from the 1st of September are in line with those other towns where obviously people have the choice whether to visit towns in our district or many of them in our neighbouring districts. So the funds are very much needed. We've made a commitment that we're going to review the charges every 2 years in future. We don't think it's reasonable to wait 10 years to change them. As an administration, we think that we should be looking to review and change in a much smaller way maybe than we have this time by keeping them under review every 2 years. When we were preparing our budget back in the start of the year, we did go out and ask people whether they thought it was the right time for us to put charges up after 10 years. And more people agreed with that than opposed it, so which we were pleased about, and that's why we've gone ahead. We understand that nobody likes paying more for a service, but actually people recognised that it was probably the right time and we needed to generate some more income from the council. The implementation of the rise has been delayed because of the coronavirus, so it would have come earlier in the spring. In fact, our car parks have, whilst they've largely been open, in April and May weren't charging at all, and the charges came back in June. So these charges will come in from the 1st of September, and I'll hand back to Joe and colleagues to answer any questions.
Welcome back. Now, just for the avoidance of doubt, I did record that piece with Rachel yesterday, so she hasn't just magically disappeared, but I am thrilled to say that I'm joined by Councillor Tony Dale, Councillor Jenny Ford, look at them, very pretty, and we're also joined by Gerard Bolton of Not Just Code, who we'll be talking to in just a moment. And first of all, I mentioned earlier, I want to say some thank yous. How could I fail to forget the Barn Theatre, who have been allowing us to use this facility free of charge over the lockdown, and hopefully we'll have some good news on an ongoing relationship going forward. But we're in their new studio now in another bit of the Barn Theatre, which is absolutely fantastic. It's all socially distant compliant. We've got lights. It's fantastic. We're really lucky to have this facility here in the Cotswolds. So a big thank you, as always, to the Barn Theatre. So we're going to have a bit of a chat now about town centres and really hospitality reopening, because we saw over the weekend businesses, pubs, hotels, hairdressers, barbers are allowed to open now. So Tony, let's start with you. How do you feel it's gone? As our cabinet member, you've been on a tour of pubs. Yes. How's it gone?
Yeah. I'm really excited, Joe. I think it's gone very well. I am really super pleased with how the businesses have taken it, how our residents have behaved really responsibly, and a big thank you to visitors as well, who have demonstrated the same kind of sensible attitude. None of the pubs or hospitality areas in the Cotswolds that I know have had to be shut down for any reason whatsoever, which is great news. And the places that I've visited, lovely to see them taking the risks associated with coronavirus, still taking them seriously, maintaining social distancing, laying out safe areas, keeping tables apart, and a lot of hospitality venues using new technology to get the menus in, get drinks from the bar to tables, and to keep tables and distances safe for everyone. So fantastic to see, great behaviours, great to see business succeeding, good to see the new technology being used in situ.
What about you, Jenny?
Yeah,
You've been out and about at the weekend?
Absolutely, and just really, and I'll add to that, just really creative. I think our environmental services team were going out and about right across the Cotswolds, and they said everywhere they went, they were so impressed with the lengths that people have gone to be innovative and creative and welcoming. And I also think that there'll be a real resurgence in customer service being taken as seriously as it used to do, because everywhere we went, everyone was so welcoming and wants us to come in and wants to give people that confidence to relax and have a good time. And we've been so impressed with businesses across the district.
You mentioned confidence. Confidence really important, isn't it? Both for businesses in able to be, in terms of being able to operate safely, but also customers having the confidence to go into town and know that, well, of course, you can't eliminate all risk. The risk is as minimal as possible. So the council have been doing a number of things to try and help local businesses. We've featured the business pack before we expanded that, didn't we, Tony? Do you just want to sort of touch on that?
Yes, absolutely. So we created business packs primarily for retailers opening for the first time a few weeks ago. And we've now modified those slightly and added to them to create safe opening packs for hospitality. So particularly thinking about cafes, restaurants, pubs, even some of the hotels opening their restaurants areas and taking in guests for the first time. Obviously the guidance, social distancing restrictions changed slightly. So although we'd still prefer 2 metre distances, where that's just not successful, maybe in a smaller venue, 1.5 metre plus. And we've helped hospitality businesses and anyone serving food think about what the risks are of opening, how they can minimise those risks, and what sort of guidance and guidelines they should be following in line with government advice.
And that's really important as well, Jenny, as the cabinet member for sort of nice things and health and safety.
Yeah.
Sorry, she's not the cabinet member for nice things, are you, Jenny? But I do call you that. You get the nice fluffy stuff. But you've also got public safety, and that's really important. So I think the message from us really needs to be that the rules still apply.
Yeah, absolutely, the rules still apply. And again, we were really impressed to see that. We work very closely with Cotswold Police, who are fantastic, and they work in partnership with us in areas where we have concerns. But so far, we have got no real cause for concern. And I think also it will be a gradual reopening as well. I know of quite a few people who said, I'm just going to leave it a week or so and just see how these things work out and what it's like. And then they're waiting to get confidence from others who are going to these places and then feeding back. So I think it'll be interesting to see over time. But our residents have been amazing throughout this entire pandemic in terms of public safety and looking out for each other and respecting the rules. And, you'll get a very small minority who, push their luck or whatever, but you'll always get that. But on the whole, people have been fantastic.
Yeah, and I'll certainly echo that. We haven't seen the scenes we've seen in other places,
No.
where massive crowds, so we're very lucky. We're going to move now to our guest of the week. It's not actually called that, the segment, but I quite like that, don't you?
Yeah.
Maybe we could get a little jingle on that. But yeah, so we're joined by Jared Bolton of Not Just Code. So, Jared, you're a scientist, a business person, but you're also a long-standing member of Cotswold Taste, and I believe you sort of teamed up with. So, just first of all, give us an idea of what your business does.
My business is a software development company, and we write software. But we've called it Not Just Code because we do extra things. And so we've been working with a lot of businesses as they ask the question, well, how do we get out of lockdown? And we've also been working with Cotswold Taste quite extensively because Cotswold Taste is a member-owned cooperative, and through the links that we established through cooperating together, predominantly in the food and drink chain, supporting businesses with supporting business and the funding community, by all working together, we can make these connections that allow us to help one another.
Fantastic.
And so the big question that's been asked is, how do we use the technology to start selling online? So for example, farm shops. Normally you go to your farm shop, you buy your nice fresh produce. Suddenly lockdown. What do? A lot of farm shops just put up a big list, phone through the order, email, and then suddenly you've got an admin nightmare that you previously didn't have. If you do get your orders through, then suddenly collection. Oh, everyone's turned up at once. How do we've blocked the road, this sort of thing. And so by using the technology that's readily available, you can book a collection slot. You can add these features to the website. Some businesses don't actually have a website.
Fantastic. So you've been working with Cotswold Taste to, is it develop an app? No,
No.
Ollie, these notes. Like, no, I'm only joking. I take responsibility for everything. So no, it's a. So it is an online sort of.
Well, that's why, because you might be saying, hang on, Cotswold Taste is all about food and drink. Sure. Why does a software company? Why is a software company a member of a food and drink cooperative? Well, that's because we developed a website, an app called Free My Menu for the hospitality sector. It's for restaurants. And when Cotswold Taste heard about this, they said, hey, you should be a member of Cotswold Taste because of all the links that we have. And again, the benefit for us has been that we've been introduced to a number of hospitality outlets, Wickwire Brewery being one of them, and they've now used Free My Menu throughout their venues, because what the system allows them to do is they update the menu, the food menu that's in the restaurant, print out, there's your menu, sir. Good front of house hospitality, customer service. And then having updated their menu, they print it out, it's already updated their website for them. And so it solves the problem of, particularly in these times when you've got to book ahead, you're going to want to know, well, what is this restaurant going to be able to serve me? And if you can't see the actual food, if it's a sample menu, very frustrating, both the venue and the consumer. But with Free My Menu, it gives you the actual up-to-date menu.
So opportunity here, you know, we're all aware of the challenges that are going to be presented as a result of you know, coming out of lockdown, sort of unfreezing of restrictions. You know, what opportunities do you see, you know, the new normal being able to bring? You know, this is a really good foundation, it would seem.
Mm-hmm. Not sure I fully understand the question.
Okay, so we've got the new normal.
Yep.
Things are starting to reopen. How do you see, you know, what are the opportunities there, do you think, for businesses? Obviously, you've mentioned your sort of, you know, what you've been working on, but how do you...
From my particular perspective, the technology, the online world, is do a health check of your website. If you haven't got a website, get one.
Yeah.
And the challenge that when people phone up and say, oh, we need a website, I say, what is it for? Is it to advertise you, or is it to actually gain sales? And then the other challenge is, I don't want to know about you. I want to know about what you do for me. So a lot of websites fall into the trap of saying, we are this, we are that. It's me, 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 me. Actually, I'm looking at this thinking, well, what's it going to do for me? The simple one, hospitality, restaurants, what time do you serve food until? Because so often you turn up at a venue, we serve food all day. Get to 8 p.m, you think, I'm still hungry. And they say, oh, we stopped serving half an hour ago. And you think, oh, and if that had been on the website, it's just little simple things, but you've got to put yourself in your customer's shoes. And
no, absolutely. And I think, Tony, what's amazing, we always get sort of taken aback by is retailers, it tends to be in particular, but actually lots of businesses, they don't have a website, they don't have that online facility. And I think with the marketplace, not the physical marketplace, but the marketplace generally changing the way it is, that's going to be key going forward. And, you know, Jared and companies like Not Just Code are going to be really important.
Absolutely they are, and I think this is a message that we've made very clear right from the start for all of our Cotswold businesses. It really doesn't matter where businesses are now and whether they're small or large. If they've just got a simple website or if they've got no website at all, there is no bar to learning new digital skills. All of the businesses that are in the Cotswolds helping retailers, people new to this, are there to help serve them and to help them grow their business online. G1st LEP is running seminars and digital support for people new to this. There is absolutely no reason why, emerging from this pandemic, all of the businesses that we have in the Cotswolds can't be much more versed in their digital skills, much more able to take orders online, much more able to enable people to book, make appointments, engage with them over the computers and on the network. So let's get on with it.
So Jared, just in terms of Cotswold Taste then, if, you know, how can people get involved? What's the sort of mechanism for doing that? And if there's somebody watching that thinks, actually, we could benefit from that, we like what Not Just Code are doing and would like to be part of a community, how would they go about doing that?
Well, in the first instance, get onto the Cotswold Taste website and make an inquiry. And the man you need to speak to is Nick Woloff.
Fantastic. Well, listen, Jared, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us today. Go.
I have an announcement.
Go. You've got an announcement?
I have an announcement.
Go.
Because, let's be honest, times are tough. And the hospitality industry with reduced numbers, it's a stretch. And with the amount of covers they can now do with the distancing rules, it's tricky. So, what we are doing is, for the foreseeable future, we are making Free My Menu free.
Fantastic. Well, you heard it here first. You heard it here first.
That is an exclusive for you. There you are.
Fantastic. Well, we like that, don't we?
That is brilliant.
So fantastic. So as you said, you know, if you're interested, visit Cotswold Taste's website to check that out. Really, really exciting. Right, we're going to go to we're going to take some questions now. So we've got a couple of pre-prepared, and we've also got lots going through online, which is good news. We've got lots from a chap called Rich James. He's very interested in the museums and the leisure centre, and on one of the posts, I think he's left his caps lock on. CDC is a joke. Open up the museum and leisure centre. I don't think we are a joke, but you know, everybody's entitled to their opinion.
I may be smiling now, but I haven't really been laughing about this, to be honest. So we've been talking about this a lot. I mean, in terms of the leisure centres, we are very much still in the hands of the government on this one. There is not much that we can do. Obviously, we're making all the preparations behind the scenes that we can in terms of once we do open up, how we might do that with social distancing measures. But at the moment, we have not been given the go-ahead to reopen either our pools or our gyms or any of our leisure facilities. And I absolutely understand the implications of that for people in terms of wanting to get back to good levels of health and well-being, and I really understand the frustrations of that, but we are doing all we can. As for the museum, slightly more positive news on that front. Our museum director has been defurloughed, and she is back working full-time, and the refurbishment project that we had on the Carinian Museum is now back working again, so we are putting the finishing touches to the museum in terms of putting all the objects in the brand new bespoke cases and arranging those and getting ready to reopen. So I haven't got a date yet, but I'm hoping to have one, and I'm hoping that it will be in time for the summer holidays, because I think there'll be lots of families and visitors and tourists and residents that would very much like to go and visit the museum as something to do.
So thank you, and Rich, lots of comments. So you know, pop me an email. I'm happy to talk about the website and the various other things that that you've raised. Yeah, more than happy to help, Rich. Tom Wharton, with the announcement that the new car park is no longer going ahead, can you let us know how much public money has been spent on the planning and investigative work? Tom, it's about £500,000, so it's not a unsubstantial amount of money. It is a lot of money, but as is life, when you have a change of administration with different priorities change, and quite often that goes with a review of what we're spending and what we've allocated funding on. So that's a democratic process. It's not perfect, but it is what we've got. But to Tom in particular, I know this is an issue that you care passionately about. You run a business in Cirencester, and I know that parking over the years has been a real issue. So I want to reassure you, we are delivering 200 spaces within the next few months. The rugby club car park on the White Way is going to be opening up. That'll have spaces. We've also recently undertaken work to the Sheep Street car park, as I'm sure you know, and we're in negotiations with another site towards the town centre for an extra 50 spaces. So we're looking at hundreds of spaces actually being added in the next few months. So that is good news in the short term. And I want to make clear, the Waterloo car park plans are not totally off the table. What we're saying is we're pausing and we're reviewing the decision we're making. Any business owner at the minute is going to be cautious about, you know, in our case, ploughing £15 million potentially and borrowing a lot of that money into a car park when we don't know what the market conditions are going to be like at the end of well, I'll say the end of the pandemic. Who knows when that will be? But certainly as we emerge as we emerge from it. Tony, do you want to sort of add anything on that? Because I know you're acutely aware, aren't you, of the pressures on businesses?
Well, yes, I am. And the last thing I want is for residents or visitors coming to Cirencester and not being able to park. I absolutely want them to make good use of the new parking facilities that we're creating. I want us to be considered about the way we think about this new facility, and I absolutely don't want any businesses to feel that people can't come and spend their money because they can't use their car. We need to think really strategically about this, and I'm confident. I'm a very enthusiastic businessman. I want businesses to thrive and succeed in the future, but that shouldn't be constrained by what the market tells us today. And today we know that car journeys have diminished hugely during lockdown. We have to understand what the marketplace is going to be like as we reopen. We have to understand how people are going to move into our town centres. Are they going to cycle? Are they going to walk more? I hope so. Are they going to be healthier in how they shop and what they do? I hope so. And we should be creating facilities to meet that real need, not going on old data from the past, thinking about what our business needs for the future and investing wisely on that basis.
Absolutely. And I think, just to sort of round off on that, £500,000, it's a lot of money, but I want to reassure residents that that's not going to all go to waste, because a lot of that paid for studies that were done that will actually help inform future modelling, our town centre master plan that we're going to start work on. So that's not money that's totally gone up in smoke. A lot of that was on studies that will help inform things as we go forward. Right, what else have we got? We have got a question, another one, Ian Johnston, about the £500,000. Where can the details of this expenditure be found? The Cabinet report, Ian, that went to Cabinet on the Council's website. Pop me an email, happy to send that to you. Janet Cullimore, please do not allow Bourton on the Water to have a one-way traffic system. Well, Janet, that's totally up to you. There's a consultation currently underway in Bourton on the Water, I think being held by the Parish Council, and they will implement, I believe, they will implement what you decide as a community. So if you don't like the plans, and as a community you decide you don't want to proceed with them, then they will not proceed. So that is in your hands at the minute. Right, we have got a question here. Let's talk about carbon targets and the environment are great. The government has been talking the talk for years, but actual action has been very minimal and very weak. Why should we believe that you're actually going to be different? What are your solid commitments that we can hold you, your party and the council to? Well, I think judge us by our actions, not just our words, because we do have ambitious targets. The first thing that we did was employ a high-level manager who's our head of climate action, Chris Crickle-Fallon. And we decided we wanted that person in a managerial role because we wanted to give it the seriousness and the credence that it deserves. And we've got to make sure that everything that the council does, the climate agenda percolates everything from our sort of cleaning contracts to the big strategic stuff. Jenny, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, it does. And I think there's a real tendency, isn't there, to think of climate emergency things as being just sticking a few solar panels on a roof and recycling. And actually, it's, as I'm learning fast from people like Councillor Rachel Coxcoon and Chris Crickle-Fallon, it's much more strategic and much more complex than that. And it can be simply things like when we do build affordable homes, which I hope we will do, that we ensure that they are as close to being carbon neutral as possible, so that they are cheap to live in. So that when you're living in them and you're paying your bills or what have you, that they are low and that you are not overheating, that you are not getting too cold, that they are not drafty, that they are well insulated. It's all of those sorts of things, isn't it? And it's about how we plan to travel around the district. It's about doing more things in terms of active leisure and active fitness and accessing the outside and respecting the outside and not dropping litter. It's all of these things. So I think there's a real tendency to just think of them as little like objects and little projects, when actually it's much more complex. It's about a way of life, and that's what we're embracing. But I think you will, we're putting in a lot of plans at the moment, and we're doing a lot of work, and I think that residents are going to start in the next 6 to 12 months to start to see the impact of those, and that's how we should be judged.
Absolutely, and as we saw in the interview with Rachel earlier, we're reviewing the local plan. That's one of the biggest things. Those achievements that we want to get to, well-built homes, well-insulated homes, that's good for the environment and save you as residents money. that's going to be absolutely key. I think the other point as well, linking up with our new economic development officer, who we've appointed, to ensure that we bring low carbon green jobs, both in terms of the actual type of jobs. That would be good, wouldn't it? We'd like some green sector jobs, but also making sure that any jobs that we do bring to the Cotswolds have a minimal effect on the climate as possible. So judge us by our actions. We've already made a statement, I think, reviewing the local plan, head of climate action, and it is worth saying our cabinet member is an industry expert. So in that respect, we've got a depth of knowledge there that is fantastic and absolutely invaluable. Right, we've got one. Richard Neve here. I guess your idea of adapting planning policy means turning a blind eye to Bathurst housing development, despite a demonstrable infrastructure failings. Great to sell out to an offshore business, eh? Well, Richard, I don't know where to begin with that. I myself voted against the Chesterton development, as did I know a number of my colleagues, and actually largely the scheme was overseen by the previous administration. We've come in, it's got planning permission, and really we need to engage in that to make sure it's the best scheme it possibly can be. Because if we don't do that, we'll get a scheme that I'm not entirely comfortable with anyway. I don't think it delivers nowhere near enough sort of social rented homes, and I think there's still a lot to be required on the green infrastructure. But we've got an option. We can throw our toys out the pram and say we don't like it, or we can engage proactively and positively with them to make sure that the development as is and that develops is the best it possibly can be. As we said, we're uncomfortable about it, the size and the scale, but it's got planning permission now. We need to engage proactively, and I think that's what residents expect of us. Steve Jones, up in the North Cotswolds, can you make it compulsory for all new housing to have solar panels, especially the 2,500 in Cirencester? Probably a bit late on the 2,500 in Cirencester, but we will certainly engage with the developer in that respect. However, one of the ideas behind reviewing the local plan is to make sure that we can build those policies into the local plan, so there is a higher standard for developers. Tony, do you want to come in there?
Well, yeah, I mean, Joe, I just wanted to kind of almost do a little bit of pre-advertising. Our commercialisation agenda will be coming to the fore over the next few years, and one of the parts of that, I very much hope, is seeing how Cotswold District Council can be a leader in helping our public buildings, as a first and foremost example, become carbon neutral. We know that most of our public buildings have the opportunity to use environmentally sound heating methods, to use much better levels of insulation. It's a capital investment. It's something that we feel we can help local organisations to fund. And I very much look forward to a point in the future when we have clear policy and a clear opportunity to help our museums, our town halls, our parish halls, and the people that run them invest in those zero carbon technologies, whether it's ground source heat pumps, air source heat pumps, solar panels, to actually do these things that make a difference to our climate and make sense to our economy in the Cotswolds. The government already is announcing today, hoping to create over 100,000 new jobs through these green industries. I hope very much the Cotswolds can be a real part of that, and I want to see our young people training to do these sorts of jobs.
Okay, Amanda, important on the water. What are you doing to protect the homes of those with embedded management arrangements from the draconian penalties, losing their free home homes ultimately lawful under the 1925 Land Act? Well, Amanda, Councillor Rachel Coxcoon is bringing a motion to the council next week, I understand. So I'd suggest you pop her an email, give her a ring, and you'll be able to chat through that with her. But I know it's an issue that you care deeply about, and we want to try and help remedy. So thank you for that. Right, we are just about out of time, I'm afraid. I want to thank everybody for joining me today. Rachel Coxcoon, Councillor Tony Dale, Councillor Jenny Ford, and of course Jared Bolton. We'll be back in a few weeks' time, and we look forward to seeing you then. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed today's show. To support our programme and all the other fantastic programmes and content that the Barn Theatre produce, please consider making a donation by clicking the link below.
In March 2018, we opened our doors to the public with a vision not just to create challenging professional theatre, but to use this as a platform to inspire and bring communities together. Theatre and culture build identity. With theatre and culture in our local life, the community landscape is more vibrant. Local life is enriched. We believe that the benefits of theatre should be available for everyone. Our Theatre for All programme has removed financial barriers, giving disadvantaged people access to the theatre free of charge.
So we were told that we'd come here and have a Christmas meal and then go and watch A Christmas Carol.
Our aim is to make live professional theatre available to everyone and use that experience for positive change. Theatre can be transformational in young lives. Our academy is now in its 4th year, and we continue to build on our vision of bringing the best performing arts tuition to the heart of the Cotswolds. We work hard to make our academy as inclusive and as accessible as possible. Discounts apply for parents with more than one child. Our bursaries help support talented children from less affluent backgrounds. The Academy creates a fun and challenging environment where children can build friendships and develop key skills not just for theatre, but for life. We are also able to provide real opportunities for students who wish to pursue careers in the arts.
My name is Harry Apps. I am currently playing Marius in Les Miserables in the West End.
Barn outreach and learning programmes engage with thousands of people. Our free workshops support the drama curriculum in local schools. Singing and musical theatre workshops in community groups and care homes have helped address issues of isolation. Our Song for Cirencester project in aid of mental health charities brought our community together in an unprecedented way. We've collaborated with many charities in the region, including the Churn Project, to support individuals dealing with the barriers to finding work.
Since working at U1, my life's changed. It's given me some purpose, given me an interest, some confidence I was lacking prior to all this.
The Barn Theatre played a pivotal role in the town's 2018 World War I centenary celebrations. Who could forget our record-breaking Human Poppy? Our live streaming work on the annual Advent Festival helped thousands engage and take part in Cirencester's Christmas festivities. In these times of uncertainty, we strive to keep the community together. The theatre may be temporarily closed, but our commitment to you goes on. Even now, our amazing costume department are helping the NHS by making scrubs for frontline workers. We've used our technology to build a free live streaming service that provides much needed community news and entertainment for all the family, broadcasting every day to keep us all connected. We are not just a theatre. We are the Barn.